Well, I've had a few of you come visit Spokane or reach out to me and start doing your research and decide that Spokane might not be for you based off of crime and homelessness specifically. And so I want to just give an update on what is going on with those two items here in Spokane. We are approaching election season, and so it is a big conversation in the news. The ballots are coming pretty soon, and we'll be voting on a few things that will affect how those crime and homelessness look going forward. So I just want to give you an update. This is not going to be my opinion on any of this stuff. I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for or how to vote. It's just to say, here's what's going to be on the ballot. Here's some info about it, and hopefully you can do some more research to decide which way is the right one for you. So we're going to jump into this. I am going to show you a few articles here. And so we're going to first look at the Inlander. So a news brief by the Inlander here showing that Spokane Mayor Nadine Woodward is joining more than a dozen other cities in formally asking the Supreme Court to overturn Martin versus Boise, which is a landmark court case that limited cities' abilities to enforce anti-camping laws. And so the courts determined that removing people from public land was cruel and unusual punishment. But this ruling has limited cities' ability to enforce camping bans and has frustrated leaders across the Western states as they work to find loopholes in the ruling. But this new petition signed by Seattle, Tacoma, and many other cities, which that would show if Spokane and Seattle are on the same ballot, you got people on both sides of the aisle. They say that it's tying the hands of local policymakers and force local governments to choose between providing shelter or surrendering the public lands to encampments. And so I was just in Portland this last weekend and know that, it's Spokane is nothing like that. I mean, you're walking down the sidewalk and in many places it's just tents literally just on the sidewalk, like a 10-person tent taking up the entire sidewalk. You got to walk into the street and walk around it, or just really any open grassy area next to the street has some sort of tent in it. So Spokane is nowhere close to that. But in regards to where we were and where we are now, there's definitely been an increase. And so I want to show you a map that actually shows the number of complaints here in Spokane about homeless camps coming up. So this interactive map here shows you all of the complaints that happen in Spokane. So a little bit of data here, but in 2023 so far, there's been almost 2,500 complaints from homeless encampments in Spokane, which is up 54% from this time last year. Most people are just calling the 311 hotline, which is just the city's hotline. And so probably many of those are duplicate calls, things like that. But so far, the city has actually cleared 948 encampments, which is up from the 720 that they had cleared in this same time period last year. But you just notice by looking at this map where the hotspots are. A couple things to just note is that this is just Spokane City. So that's why the valley is blank. We just don't have the data on that. But South Hill, basically a couple complaints. There's nothing really there. There's no data. 5 Mile North Indian Trail, no data at all. And you can really see as you start to zoom in, it's really concentrated in downtown, along the I-90 corridor. And then it starts to spread into the West Central neighborhoods, into the Logan neighborhood. And then it continues to go up along North Division, just the major roadway here in Spokane. And then there's some groupings in Hilliard. But Northwest Spokane, Audubon, things like that, minimal complaints. Balboa, 5 Mile, basically nothing as well. So the first thing we're going to be voting on that'll be on the ballot is Prop 1 here in Spokane. And so Prop 1 is in regards to where people can camp in Spokane. And so they are arguing that nobody should be able to camp within 1,000 feet of a park, a school, or a daycare. And so this map actually shows you where camping would be illegal. So any of these color spots would be within 1,000 feet of a park, school, or daycare. And the thing to note here, a couple things, is that one, where it was really dense on this previous map, it becomes extremely illegal in that same area. And so are we really solving the problem is the question. Are we just pushing it to other areas? Because you'll see that the South Hill is still significantly illegal in most of it. But there's a lot of gray spots and where it could be allowed. And same with Indian Trail, same with 5 Mile, things like that. And so our are they just going to move, or are they, I think what the real goal here, what they're intending to happen is that it'll be illegal downtown, and which forces them into the shelters to stay. They can't camp out on the sidewalks downtown. They have to go into the shelters that are downtown, because I think what people do not want is for homeless people to get pushed out of downtown where all the resources exist for them. They can get fed downtown, they can get phones downtown, medical help, all those things. It's all downtown. And so if they get pushed out from there, they're going to get away from the resources. Is that actually going to help anybody in this situation? So there's a lot to think about with this one, because it's like, I think it has well intentioned. It's just, are we shifting the problem to somebody to make it somebody else's problem in the long term? That's kind of the argument there. So I don't even know which direction I would go with this one, honestly. And then along with the conversation of homelessness always comes the conversation of crime. And so we have prop 1 for the location of homelessness, and now we have measure 1 with how are we handling crime. And so measure 1 in Spokane is being proposed to add an additional 0.02% sales tax onto our already incredibly high sales tax compared to the rest of the country. But we don't have income tax, so it's all a wash at the end of the day. What the argument here is that the wording for measurement 1 was very vague, and it basically made it sound like it was going to be used for health, like healthcare for homeless people, or that people that are on drugs or anything like that would be able to get into behavioral help, mental help, drug abuse help, things like that. But a lot of the money most likely will be used more towards building a new jail or 2. There's a big push. The people really behind this would like to have 2 more jails in the Spokane area, and or expand on the ones that we have, so that the final goal would be to have 1,000 more beds available to make the jails hopefully less crowded. Because currently it's really more like if somebody gets arrested, somebody has to go. And so it's just kind of in one door, out the other. And there's a lot of stories from police officers that they make an arrest, they bring somebody in, and 2 hours later, they find that same person doing the exact same crime in the exact same spot. And so there's arguments from both sides. Like there's probably a need because we're incredibly overcrowded in our jails. But we definitely want to be very clear. And this measure has already gone back to the courts to say, you have to make this wording more clear. How is the money going to be spent? Because I think a vast majority of people would like there to be more help for these people in some way, but just also accountability is the biggest word, another big word as well. And we just want people to be held accountable. And so I'm actually editing this video right now, and I recently just got out of a meeting that explained measure number 1 even more. And again, I said that I'm not a proponent for any of this stuff. I'm not saying for or against it, but I would really encourage you to go to the Spokane, just search up Spokane County measure number 1 and go to the actual website, and then just watch this video, because it really explains a lot about what this is, where the money's going, and the reason for this thing. And it's hard to understand what the opposition is. It's hard to see what really the opposition is. We don't want a larger jail. We don't want more jail in Spokane County, which I hear you. But I would just say, do your research on this. I think is an interesting measure that should definitely be considered. So I didn't have enough info while I was recording the video, so please go check out this website and do more research, because this is all the info that you'll need. But with a little bit of good news at the very end here, I think this is the type of thing that we need to be leaning into. Spokane is going to hand over a very tricky property to like a Northeast development, the Northeast Public Development Authority, for $1. So the Spokane city has had a piece of land from a church that had burned down in 2017. And they spent $418,000 on the demolition and removal of asbestos, but the property is worth like less than half that. So they can't get their money back. So what they plan on doing is giving it over to them for $1 to build 25,000 square foot building that would have 30 affordable homes, to rent to those that make 80 to 115% of the median income, with ground floor commercial space. And then they would just treat it like a normal commercial deal, where you build the place, you stabilize it, you rent it out, and then after 5 or so years, you just sell it. That's how most commercial properties work. They only give bank loans for 5 to 7 years on most commercial places anyway. And so the city of Spokane would have a stake in that sale and they would get paid out at the very end. And so I just think that there's so many vacant lots in Spokane, large vacant lots. I don't know what we're doing with them. I'm sure a lot of them are privately owned, but in a place like this, where maybe it's not the most beautiful area, a big developer doesn't want to come in and build their apartment building. We need to be building small micro apartments with a couple storefronts and just get some housing out there that is affordable. And I love this idea of giving the land for free so we can build, and then you just have a lien against the property. You have equity in the property and you get paid out at the very end. So you as the landowner, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to get your paycheck at the very end. I think this is great. And it just allows it to be more possible to build this affordable housing because you don't need so much capital up front to make it happen. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. How are you feeling about crime, homelessness here in Spokane? What are you voting for? How do you think we are going to solve it? Like I said, I was in Portland this last weekend. We are nowhere near that. I just think most people in Spokane just don't want us to get any closer. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I'm releasing videos every single week on Spokane, the real estate market, and what life is like here. And if you have any specific questions, you can use the link down below in the description to schedule a meeting on my calendar at a time that's convenient for you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.